Okay, get into the festive cheer. Hi everybody, welcome to another video, or hi if you're new here. My name's Maria and I make videos about all sorts of knitting topics, knitting vlogs, that kind of thing. So if you fancy, come subscribe and join the gang. But today we are going to talk about knitting gifts. Gifts for knitters. If you are a knitter who doesn't know what to put on their Christmas list, you will enjoy this video, hopefully, because it gives you loads of inspirations of things you might find useful, that you might want to explore. Likewise, if you are somebody who has a knitting friend in their life, this is a whole host of things that they will need, no matter what skill level they are, no matter how long they've been knitting for. There is something for every price range in this, so hopefully you will find all of this very interesting and very useful. Now grab a pen and paper, grab your tea, coffee, beverage of choice, and sit back and relax. Now I say grab a pen and paper, but actually you don't need a pen and paper. Everything will be listed in the description box down below, and I'll specifically make sure to mention small businesses because there is loads of great small knitting businesses in this wonderful community. I also just wanted to say a little disclaimer. None of that stuff here has been sponsored. It's just simply my opinion, things that I've been using over the last few years that I have been loving and finding really, really useful. So hopefully you will too. All right, without further ado, let's start the video. And we're going to start off with the smaller things that cost a bit less. Now, the first thing that I wanted to put on the list is one of my most well-used, well-loved, and cherished knitting accessories, and it's my notions case. A notions case is sort of any small pouch with loads of useful little items in that any knitter will need throughout the life of their knitting project. And what's great about it is that you have all the essentials in one little bag, and you can throw them in your project bag, and out the door you go, and you know you have every important little bit that you need right at hand. So in my notions case, I always have some embroidery needles. You can use any kind of needles. I find the ones that have a flexible eyelet the most useful because any size yarn will go through them. It's really useful to weave in your ends at the end. The next thing I have is stitch markers. I personally like using metal ones because they are just a bit more durable, and also because of something else that I like to have in my notions case, which I'll mention in a little bit. But the metal ones, like I said, really durable. You can get them in different colors, which is important. But if you want to buy some nice beginning of round markers, I personally like these ones from Bubbles and Berries. They are a wonderful Scottish company. They hand embroider all their designs and they change throughout the seasons. And I think it's just a lovely little handmade gift, which would be perfect on its own as well. The next thing I have in there are scissors. You can either get these beautiful stork ones, or I have unicorn ones too, which are great. But my particular fave are these foldable ones from Knit Pro, from their mindfulness collection. They fold up really easily, really tiny, and they are super useful, and I can even travel with them on a plane. Next up, I just have a measuring tape. Any tape will do that fits into your case, and then a crochet hook for those dropped stitches. I think a size 3 to 4 millimeter will work for most projects and is sort of a good middle ground. You can get really tiny ones which fit into smaller pouches, or you can just get a normal sized one. Now, one of my needle pouches has got a little zip compartment on the side, and in there I have space for a few more things. So the next things aren't quite essential, but they're still useful to have. And if you have the money and the room, then that's great stuff to add. The first thing is stitch stoppers to stop my stitches sliding off the needles. Again, something like a 3 to 5 millimeter size would work well for most projects. And the next thing I have in there is a needle minder. Now that's a new thing. I found that this year. It's by Generates, and that's a little magnetic disc with a magnetic closure, so it won't ruin your clothes. And you can add any magnetic metal stitch stoppers onto it, and you won't lose them. So if you are on a round where you need to place them or remove them, you can just add them on there, and they won't be scattered around the room. It's such a great little gift. I think if there's anything that you want to gift a knitter, I would add this in. And lastly, I'd throw in a stitch or row counter in there because it's one of those things which I so often need, always misplace or lose, and wish I had more of every time. So can't go wrong with that too. The Notions case itself can really be anything. There's particular ones which have compartments for all the different things that I just mentioned, like this one here. I found it years ago from John Lewis, so I can't actually find it anymore now. But there's beautiful ones by the Knitting Swan, which have a zip at the top, or by Petite Knit. And you can also just use any little pouch or tin that you have lying around. I used this one from my husband where he had his licorice in, and I just then stole because it just fits everything I need, including the scissors. So anything that you want can become a Notions case. And like I said, you don't have to buy all of these things. There's the few essentials. You can also just buy one or two things if you have a little budget, or maybe if you're just doing a Secret Santa. So any of these items I think will be useful for a knitter of any skill level. The second thing on the wish list is all about wool care. Any knitter in any point of a project's life will have to start taking care of it. So all of these things are very useful again. The first thing I want to mention is something you might not think about, but it is cedar blocks because they prevent moths. And I have a few cedar blocks in all of my project bags, in some of the drawers that I have my yarn in, and it's just a little layer of insurance that nothing gets in there that shouldn't be in there, eating your wool. The next thing is a good wool wash. Euclid makes a wonderful one. You can get it in an unscented version or lots of different scented varieties. I personally like the eucalyptus one. And the next thing I wanted to mention is de-pilling tools. Now you can get these little combs, which are great to throw again, maybe in a little project bag or have on the go if you're traveling. They are a little bit more rough, but very inexpensive. You can also get these Y combs, which are a bit bigger, and I think they work particularly well for mohair projects. And I think they are a bit more gentle than the smaller wool combs. The last thing is an electronic de-pilling machine device. What do you call it? It's basically something that you run over your garment to take away any of these little bubbles. I have one that you need to plug into a socket, which is not really that useful, because you always need to be near an outlet. What I think I'd prefer is a battery operated one, because you can just whip that out anywhere and quickly go over your garment. So definitely go for one of those, I would say. And make sure that you find one that has changeable blades, because they will dull after a while and you'll want to change them. And if you're gifting this, make sure that you're adding in the batteries too. The third thing that I'm going to put on the Christmas wish list is Ravelry Patterns. Did you know that you can gift Ravelry Patterns? I think that's such a nifty little idea from them. So you can just put any pattern that you like onto your wish list, send the link, and then whoever's buying it can just go to the send the pattern as a gift button. And then all they need is your email address or your Ravelry name, and they can buy the pattern for you and it'll be sent straight to you, which is not just nice for you, but also nice for the designers. So the fourth thing on our Christmas gift list, which I think is something you really can't go wrong with either way, is project bags. Now, if you have a small budget, you can buy a small project bag and the person can use it for hats, accessories. If you have a large budget, you can buy a nice roomy big one with loads of little pockets and they can use it for their big projects. So no matter what your circumstances are, you can find a project bag for you or the knitter that you're using it for. The favorites that I have are by the Fiber Fox, which is the first one that I've ever bought. And I love it because it's quite squishy and I can fit a lot in there. It's sort of a medium-sized one and it's great for throwing into my handbag if I'm on the go. Then I have a few ones by Petite Knit, which are quilted. So they have a lot more structure and a lot more sturdy. They have a lot of pockets on the sides for needles, notions, snacks, bits and bobs, everything you need. But usually I have those around the house. Now, what's on my wish list this year is a knitting bag from the Knitting Swan. They are also a bit bigger and structured, so they're quilted. They have loads of pouches on the inside. But most importantly, they have little loops where you can attach a belt onto so that you can wear your project bag, which is genius. Why have we not done this sooner? And so I want to really have one of those so that I can easily take my project out and wear it and put my phone in, my keys in, and my snack and be good to go. So those are my 3 favorite brands to buy project bags from. But there's loads of great small businesses who make project bags, and I'm sure the local yarn store near you will have a selection too. So the 5th thing that I'm putting on the gift list is something more for a knitter who's been a knitter for a hot minute. So somebody who will stick with it, because it's quite particular, and it's a wool winder. A wool winder takes a skein that you can buy off the shelf and makes it into a yarn cake. And a yarn cake is way easier to knit from because it won't roll around everywhere. It'll just be sitting somewhere and you can unwind the yarn from it way easier as you're knitting. It's also great if you want to inspect your yarn before you're knitting, remove any impurities, imperfections. Sometimes yarn is joined at some point in a skein, so you can find those joints before. And I also use it if I'm having a project where I need to hold 2 strands together. So I just wind the 2 strands together and have my one cake to knit from. It's just a little less that flies around in my project bag and makes things messy and tangled. So there's loads of uses for it, and I think it's one of those things which you didn't know you needed. So if you have a knitter in your life who has been knitting for a while, get them a yarn cake winder and they will love it forever. The one that I have is from Knit Pro, which I think is quite common. It's been working fine for the last few years, nothing has broken, so I think it's a great little choice. This section is probably more for those of you who are knitters. Now, the last thing that I put on the Christmas knitters gift list is needles. I'm a really big fan of C-knit needles. They are made in Japan, out of bamboo. They have brass connectors and then plastic cables. They have a lot of flexibility. They are lightweight. I love the coating that they have. It's not too slippery, but it's also not giving you too much resistance. In my opinion, the point is sort of just right. I really love them. They're very, very good, very durable. And if you are in the market for a new set of needles, definitely have a look at them. I've made a whole video about C-knit needles and compared them to my previous Knit Pro interchangeable range. So if you want to see that, I'm going to leave a link up here for you right now to watch later. But they are a little bit pricey. Now, what I have done when I was still fangirling over them, I have actually asked for one of their smaller sets for Christmas, which was, I think, 2 years ago now. Basically, they sell sets of 4 needle sizes, which contain the cables, the connectors, and also some stoppers. So you kind of get a whole feel of what the large set will be like. And I asked for the 3 to 5 millimeter size because that's sort of the most common needles that I use. And they are around 50 pounds a pack. So a bit up there, definitely worth to put on the Christmas list and not splurge on yourself. But it was just a great way for me to test out the needles, see if I like them, see if they fit my knitting style, my preferences. Needles are just very personal. And then I ended up loving them and asked for the bigger set for my birthday. So that would be a great introduction to them. Now, if you're watching this because you have a knitting friend in your life and you're looking for some present inspiration for them, here are a few things that I would absolutely not recommend that you get for them unless they specifically asked you for one of those things, like for a very specific one, okay? So the first thing is knitting pattern books. Style is very personal, very particular, but also knitting pattern books have a very specific style of instructing because they only have a limited amount of space. Everything's very reduced, so it might not be to the skill level of the knitter that you're buying for. Hence why I would stay away from it. The second thing is yarn. Don't buy any yarn for anyone unless they specified exactly which one, which color, and how much. Because yarn is very personal, it's very specific to the project. You'll always need a specific amount for each project, and you can't go off and just buy more because dye lots make the color a bit different every single time. So don't go off buying any yarn. And the third thing that I wouldn't buy for anybody unless they specifically ask for it is knitting needles. And that's because needles are really personal to the knitter. There's just some people who swear by their metal needles, others who will never touch a metal one but love their bamboo ones. It's just so personal and you don't want to splurge a lot of money and get them something they actually don't really want or knit with. And also it's really particular to the project. So different projects will require different needle sizes. it's best to just stay out of that and leave it to the knitter. And like I said, any of the things that I have mentioned before will make a way more useful gift no matter what project they're going to use it for, no matter what skill level they're at. So I would stick to those and move away from pattern books, yarns, and needles. Well, that's it. That is all the things that I have on the knitting gift list for this year. It's stuff that I think will be really useful for a knitter of any skill level, no matter how long you've been knitting for. And I hope that you found some inspiration there for your own gift list, or maybe for the knitter in your life. If you want to support my channel, the best thing that you can do is just click on the next video that you'll be suggested. YouTube loves that kind of stuff. And otherwise, I hope to see you again in another video, and thanks for spending some time with me, and Merry Christmas. Bye.